Hey, everybody. Welcome to the TEConnect podcast. I'm John Martin.
And I'm Dean Reverman.
Dean, we've hit some episodes in the last 6 months to a year or so about things like sustainable growth,
Yes.
embracing automation, building strategic relationships to grow your company.
True.
And a couple of those that we did was just you and me.
Yes.
And
yes.
we admit,
in our opinions.
right, we admit that we're not experts on
Air
things.
quotes, full air quotes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So we've brought in an expert today to kind of tie all that together into a story about rapid scaling.
Yes.
So we have Daniel Cooper with us today. He is an automation expert. He's going to help us talk, a little more in depth about this idea of how to scale your business.
Yep.
He knows a lot about this stuff.
Yep.
But I think we can kind of maybe pull those messages together into a cohesive story, for our VAR audience, and I think also especially for our software companies.
Yes,
a lot of times that are kind of
absolutely.
in that startup phase. Maybe
Yeah.
you're still trying
Yep.
to figure out how to take that next step, and grow and scale at an exponential level.
And too fast growth can be bad too,
Exactly.
right?
We'll get
so
into that too.
yeah, there's
so,
that sweet spot
Yep.
there. You got
So we're going to explain kind of that rapid scaling, what that really means, how things could go wrong potentially. We're going to talk about some structuring that you can do of simple systems to get you there, and also we're going to riff a little bit more on this whole remote work thing because that can actually be a piece of the puzzle to scaling up your company as well.
All right, fair enough. Fair enough.
All right.
Lots to
plus,
unpack.
Exactly. All that plus the usual value to the VAR and what's TEConnecting with us. It's time to plug in and get connected.
Welcome to the TEConnect podcast. It's time to get connected.
All right, as I mentioned, our guest today, Daniel Cooper. He is a self-professed growth geek, the founder of Lollyco, and the author of an upcoming book, Upgrade, the lightning fast path to productivity and automation in business. Daniel, thank you so much for joining us today. I'll let you start off kind of talking a little bit maybe more about yourself and explain what got you into automation and into founding Lolly.
That's great. Thanks so much, both. It's great to be here. I really appreciate bringing you on as a guest. So what got me into automation and starting Lollyco? Well, I'm a developer, so I've made software for a number of years, and like most software developers, I like automation. I like to just automate things that are slowing me down, and really in the businesses that I've built, things have got really busy. And you guys know, when you build businesses, things get really hectic, and you just kind of put plasters on stuff and you move on. And automation is often a way of solving those fires and dampening them down and moving on to the next thing. So I got very much used to doing it like that. And we're very much, low code, no code tools. And over time, I realized actually you end up just building a business which is like a body covered in plasters. And really, you should just deal with the injury. Don't just try and cover it up. So to cut a very long story short, I was working as a CTO, and I was implementing a lot of automation and controls in a medical business that I was working for, and I was approached by a few other companies over the years to start dealing with these problems for them. And in the end, I thought, do you know what? Let's just start doing that. That's a good idea. Let's head into this path, and ever since then, it's grown rapidly, which is like most companies. There are, there's good and bad points to that as well, right? So we face the same issues that our customers do on a daily basis, of course.
Makes sense, yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah, I like that, the idea of, hey, I decided to make a company because everybody kept bugging me about doing something. And I figured, why do it for free or just on one-offs?
Right, there's a market need for here somewhere. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, and let's be honest, a lot of our customers probably are in the same boat, especially,
100%.
Again, a lot of the software companies we find ourselves working with are probably ones that may have been doing something completely different and kept getting questions about, hey, how can we do this? Or maybe they were working in a job or in a certain industry where they said, man, there's a real need for something different here. I'm going to create that something different and turn it into a business. So I always love to hear that. Yeah. So I think you're going to line right up with a lot of our customers and what they're looking for. So then let's get into this conversation about rapid scaling, as you refer to it. And first of all, help us define that, what that means on your terms, and when do you think a company is ready to do it? But then also on the flip side of that, let's also get into what can go wrong if they're not ready.
Sure. Okay. So when we talk about rapid scaling versus growth, we need to deal with two words. We need to talk about linear growth and exponential growth. As humans, we're really bad at trying to attribute any type of time in the future to something. So, for instance, if I ask you how many sales you make next week, you might be able to make a pretty firm answer within a year or two later on. That's going to start to get really hard. Now, when we start to do rapid scaling, what we're seeing is exponential growth. And that's where things become difficult to predict. It's great in one way because all of our plans and all of our dreams have come true. We're seeing massive growth. There's loads of revenue. Everyone's high-fiving. But then those small fires that I was talking about at the start of the podcast and was trying putting plasters on, you can't put a plaster on it because it's a blazing inferno. And before you know it, you turn around and there's blazing infernos everywhere and everyone's just running around like headless chickens. And that is one of the problems that's going to start to emerge. So really, before you kind of look at what could go wrong if you're not ready, as you said, how do we know if we're ready to start getting into rapid scaling? And the big answer there is, can we point out a plan to every member of staff on our team that this is the exact instruction on how to do this? This is the exact plan where if we onboarded a new person, they just had the plan straight away there. And we knew exactly what we were going to do. Without that, you're not ready to have any type of exponential rapid growth, simply because the fires are going to be too big and you're going to start to burn clients, right? And then as soon as your reputation is damaged, that's quite bad. But you often see these issues emerge in areas that you wouldn't think of. So you're going to encounter something, if you do start to rapidly scale and you're not ready, something called normalization deviance. Sounds like something I've made up, right?
Or very scientific, at least. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Right. The normalization deviance. This is really common, and I don't know about you guys, but I've got two very young kids. I've got one who's 4 and one who's 2.5. And the funny thing about that age is they'll come back from school or we call it nursery here. I think you guys call it kindergarten. So they'll come home and they would have learned something new. Where have you learned this from? One of the other kids has picked it up from somewhere. They've taught the next kid. So normalization deviance is what's going to happen within the company. So one person will deviate from the plan just slightly.
Mm-hmm.
And someone else sees them doing this. And that's obviously acceptable to do that now because the other person has and no one's been picked up. So the next person down the chain does the same thing. Before you know it, the deviance is kind of flooded through the company and everyone's gone completely off the chart with this. And then it can become quite dangerous to the point where if you have a company that's very much trying to be compliant in an industry, this can get into hot water really quick. And you can find that actually this deviance can be really damaging. So that's one area that is really important to watch out for, that the plan is there, that no one is deviating from the plan. You need the spot check. Don't just put a process in place and then not check it. That was no point. You need a process for your process. And then the second one is we need to watch that we're not going to burn people out. So my belief is there is a reason why we're all working 8-hour days. If you try and work more than 8 hours, I'm sure you guys can contest, you start to feel a bit tired, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
10 hours is getting difficult. 12 hours, working sluggish.
Yeah.
But I don't actually think anyone's even really productive for 8 hours a day. It's probably about 6.5 hours maximum. So 80% of your day. So you see big consulting companies like McKinsey, Accenture, Cognizant, Bain & Co. These are big consulting firms who've done a lot of management consultancy, and most of them believe 80 to 90% utilization rate or actual productivity is the pinpoint that we should be going for, no more. So when you're rapidly scaling, you're going to start to burn people out. People are starting to hit utilization rates of 110%, 120%. They can only do that for a few days before it starts to creak and people get tired and ill and sick, and then we lose people. So these are the areas that I think you've got to really watch out for.
Really interesting. Let's go back to the rapid scaling, the concept of that versus growth, if you will, because I think that's an important one to kind of delineate. And it took me a little to get it squared away in my mind too. I mean, from a scaling perspective, what you're saying is that a business really can't scale unless there are some processes in place that are scalable, meaning it's the same process time and time again. And through that delineation of the process, now you can scale it rapidly, right? Now you can add on more customers because you're doing the same thing, but instead of doing it for one person, you're doing it for 100. So you've just scaled the business, correct? Using a process, whereas...
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, you're so right. I mean, look, there's a really good example. We've all got a Starbucks around the corner. There's one not far from me. There's one not far from you, and there's one not far from every listener. And at the same time, we've all got another coffee shop that we quite like. The local coffee shop, the local guy who runs it, he's done it for a few years. We really like it there. He makes a good coffee. But his growth is much harder than Starbucks, because if you want to get a new store for this guy with his artisan coffee shop, boy, that's hard. He's got to teach everyone his perfect way of making, a macchiato or a cappuccino, and he's got a real art to it, but he doesn't really have any of it written down, and he sees it as an art rather than a science. With Starbucks, they're just going to chuck a manual at you and say, cool, off you go. We've already found the place. We've done the research. We know exactly what's happening. Here's the manual, go. This is why we can see kids who are, 16, 17, 18, making you a cappuccino in New York, and it's exactly the same in Florida. And that's where rapid scaling starts to come in, right? And that's when you know you're ready to do so, because everyone knows you can chuck a bunch of cash at Starbucks and we're going to scale rapidly. As long as we can find the locations, we chuck a load of cash at our local coffee guy, this might not work out so well. In fact, we're just going to get a bunch of fires that we can't control.
Right.
I really like this concept, Daniel, because in our world, you hear a lot about as a service, right? So a lot of our channel, a lot of the businesses and the technologies that we play in are moving to this as a service model. So whatever, I can develop a solution on a mobile device, and I'm going to provide a variety of services to the end user to manage that device for them. So there's just a lot of chatter, and the whole industry is moving towards this as a service model, right? I mean, you hear about it everywhere. It's how can we get that recurring revenue? How can we do these things? Well, you really can't do them at scale unless you have processes defined with limited deviation. And I'm going to start using that word because, right? What you're advocating here, Daniel, is kind of thwarting deviation. You really want to line up processes in certain parts of your business so that it is cookie cutter, to use a term, but what you're going to gain from that is the ability to scale it at scale, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for all those listening, start thinking about your processes in your head. Think about everything that's happening in your business right now. It feels foggy, right? You can't quite picture all the processes. It's hard to pinpoint all those things, but you shouldn't have to keep any of that in your brain. Your brain's awful at this. You're in the shower and you think, oh, I forgot to call Sally back about whatever it is, the new server we should have ordered from AWS or X, Y, and Z, and your brain's awful to remind you of these things. So you need firm processes to get all this down. Even when we're talking here about, and as you were just saying, services, as a service, whatever they kind of are, a lot of that is going to come back to sales and is going to come back to support.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't give our sales guys, specific structured plans and processes, two things are going to happen. One, they're going to be terrible at selling. So we're going to get bad performance out of some of the reps and great performance out of others. And we don't really know why. And they don't even know why either.
Mm-hmm.
And it upsets them. Or they're going to start selling stuff we can't actually do and promise clients things that are completely outlandish. And then people instantly churn, which is the worst.
Bingo. It's the last one there that I have experienced a lot in my life. You got a rogue sales rep, or they're just trying to do their job, I guess, right? And they don't understand it, or the process isn't well defined. So they start offering the world.
Yep,
and it's like, whoa, what the hell did you just do?
And you've either got to back that up in some way and just do it and know you're going to lose out on that,
right,
or you've got to have a very hard conversation with not only the customer but the employee also. About we got to talk about this.
Right? I mean, at the end of the day, you thought, hey, let's get some sales reps in. This is going to be great. I've just watched Boiler Room, the film. I'm excited. I'm G'd up. And the sales guy says, hey, what do I have to do? You say, look, just sell as much of this as you can. That's the process. So what's he going to do? He's just going to, as we say in the UK, be wide and just say whatever he wants, and then it will churn, and that's awful. But then, of course, the other side is we've got support. And if we haven't trained someone in support what the actual answer is, again, two things are going to happen. One, we're just going to start refunding people for things we shouldn't be refunding them on. Or two, we're just going to churn them through bad support. Yeah. And we can't. What's the point if you've got a bucket, it's got holes in it, and you're just trying to pour more water in it constantly? But if you fix the holes in the bucket first, it's going to make your life so much easier, right?
Yeah, definitely.
This is the key, especially with recurring revenue.
Yeah, bingo. Yeah, absolutely.
I like that we're talking about this in a sense of, I feel like we're giving you a roadmap towards scaling, but we're also telling you like, hey, it's okay to not do this. It's okay to acknowledge that you're not ready yet. It's okay to admit that, look, I don't have what I need in place to do this right now. You know, your example of the artisanal coffee maker.
Right.
You know, that guy might think, hey, that would be awesome if I could open 20 shops around the country or something, or even just in my little area here, my region. But acknowledging that you don't have what you need in place to compete with the Starbucks of the world and to replicate what you do very well. I think sometimes it's okay to take a step back and say, you know what? I'm extremely good at what I do right here. I'm doing everything I need to do to make a great living off this. Maybe long term, I ramp up enough to have a second location when I've got someone I trust enough that can replicate this process. But I think it is okay to say, look, I know we want to do this. We'd love to do this. Everybody would love to have the business that's the next multi-million-dollar company that's spread around the world, but that doesn't mean you can't.
No, it doesn't. And that's why I think this concept is so important that Daniel's illustrating here, because I think that a lot of our customers, and Daniel, they're systems integrators, right? And they're very project-based. I mean, if we were to go back 20 years before recurring revenue or as a service, hell, we don't even have to go back that far, 10 years ago, everybody's project-based. And so their companies would grow, yes, but they're growing by the next project, right? And the next project's going to be bigger, or we're just going to do more of these, although they're all going to be customized and it's all going to be, very hand-holdy, which is fine.
But it's not always sustainable.
But it's not scalable is what the point is here. If you want a scalable business, you really have to bring processes to bear in order to be able to scale it, right?
Yeah, so, and there was an article I put it on the cue sheet for us here that from spenddesk.com that they mentioned like Google as an example. And obviously Google is the most high level example you can get, but it noted that hey, they started off, they figured out how to scale in recent years, adding customers, either paying business clients or ad supported free users, while being able to keep costs at a minimum. As of 2017, it had 7 products with over 1 billion active users each, while only employing about 88,000 people. Granted, no, we're not telling anybody you can aspire to be the next Google. I'm sorry, that's a whole different.
A little bit of an anomaly. Yeah.
In this same article, it also noted that 2/3 of the fastest growing companies fail, which is that right there is telling you like, hey, you may all want to do this, but if you're not ready for it, you may start heading down that path and end up failing. And to your point, Dean, I think that gets us into the next part of our conversation here, which is something you refer to as structuring simple systems, Daniel, and as a way to scale rapidly. So tell us a little bit more about that. Give us some context and examples of how that works.
Yeah, sure. So often what's going to happen with this type of thing is we're all going to accept, we're going to say, hey, okay, we get it. Rapid growth is just as stressful as having no customers. Ask anyone who's done rapid growth and is out of control, they'll tell you that. So what people are naturally going to do is say, okay, we get it. We're going to start to draw up these process maps. We're going to start to understand how these things work, and we're going to work together and pull this all together. What's naturally going to happen is people are going to overcomplicate things. We need to break it right down. We need to understand, a bit like when we're talking about no and low code automation tools. They always have a trigger. So you just something like Zapier. There's a trigger to start what they call a zap for something else to happen. Well, we need to do the same thing here. What's our trigger? Okay, so whatever it is, Brian receives an email from a client. Right, there we go. Boom, there's our trigger. And what happens next? And we need to break everything down into its most simplistic steps that we can. This is absolutely vital. Then off of the back of that, you can start to make plans. So looking at actually what is the best foot forward with all of these simple processes. And then at the same time, we can start to do actual planning of key personnel risk. A good point is you might suddenly expose, or hang on a second, it's only Peter actually knows how to do this one process. So if Peter leaves, we're in big trouble, right?
Yeah, right.
So, that's really what I mean by structuring simple systems. I don't mean restructure everything just because we want to make everything simple, because life doesn't work that way, right? Especially when we're talking about software and we're talking about, engineering products. Really what we want to do is to try and break everything down to its own component parts. that's where we're going to really start to establish what the actual processes are and start to really understand what we can do to optimize and improve these.
Yeah, bringing to bear tool sets, right? That's where you start getting into tool sets like Zapier or something like that. I was reading some of the articles on your webpage about RPAs, and we've talked about that, where it's just this process automation, but it's maybe some very clerical type of activities that you can add an RPA to, and it helps to automate that part of a particular process. It's not only automating it, it's standardizing it, and it's bringing to bear the efficiencies that brings, right? So what if we have it right? So what are some of those tools then, Daniel, or what are some manifestations, I guess, of this structuring a simple system? I mean, I guess you were tapping on a little bit with the email and the triggering a zap, but are there some other things out there that you're aware of or that you do commonly?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'll tell you the same thing that I tell every single new client who joins us is this. When was the last time you phoned your bank and you said to them on the phone, I just want to speak to a robot? Right? I mean, I don't know about what it's like in the States, but in the UK, we used to have bank managers. They don't exist in the UK anymore. No one has a bank manager. I'd love a bank manager. I'd love a guy or a girl I could just call about our account and speak to them, but it just doesn't exist anymore. So the clue there is the fact that we should be shifting the humans away from the boring binary stuff. So we're talking about things like reconciliation of accounts. We're talking about moving money between bank accounts. A good example here is we have a number of bank accounts in our own system here for our cash flow where money comes into the main account and is automatically split between the others so that we can start to actually plan for the quarter and start to budget properly. And we also reconcile this at the same time for our accounts. So this is a good example of something that can be controlled that way. But when it comes to any type of client interaction, there's a human there, right? So when we're talking about actually doing those processes, I'm talking about not doing the human-to-human stuff. I'm talking about doing stuff that is measurable, where there are numbers involved, where it's binary, whether it's true or false, or if it's this or that. There can be no gray area in these things. That's what humans are great at. We're brilliant generalists, right?
Yeah.
And machines are terrible at this. Ask Deep Blue to beat you with Super Mario, you'll win hands down, right? Chess is another story.
Right.
Yeah, but tools like RPAs are out there, right? I mean, people are using them today. Yeah. I'm looking at a statistic on your website. 88% of corporate controllers expect to implement RPAs in 2021. I mean, that's, so businesses are starting to get the idea out there that there are some ways that we could automate some processes. But the optics here are, especially if a company is looking to scale, really looking for some of those opportunities that they can do it and still offer these services. But again, a lot of stuff's happening in the background utilizing tools and maybe even processes like RPAs that they may not be aware of that are out there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's right. Your listeners are going to be more advanced, right? So the Zapier and IFTTT type of products out there are going to be really quite simplistic for their needs because they're already aware of how to integrate with APIs and start to utilize different scripts in order to run crons at the right time. So for those types of people, they need to be looking at tools like Trade.io, which allows you to interact with different API endpoints very easily and push the data through an entire system, which is quite complex compared to Zapier. But if you have some technology training and you have some development skills, you can create some amazing things from this, which just aren't possible with other low and no code tools.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, and I think, we talk a lot, we've talked in other episodes before about the idea of replicating the things that you like in your personal life. And realizing like, hey, why wouldn't you give your employees access to the same kind of tools that they like to use in their day-to-day life? We talk about that when we talk about like mobile computing, for instance. A lot of our resellers sell mobile computers that are, designed to work within those spaces. And part of the reason you talk about it is, hey, everybody is walking around with a cell phone in their hand every day. We're all used to these things to get information, to learn, to adapt, to adjust, to communicate. So it's hard to tell somebody like, hey, I want you to go work in a space where you don't have access to that kind of technology. I want you to use old-fashioned technology instead. So, the whole idea behind that is, why don't you bring what works for us in our day-to-day lives into a work environment as well. I think it's kind of similar here too. We have learned to live with different types of automation in our own lives, whether it's as simple as, bill paying, for instance.
Right.
When was the last time you wrote a check to pay a bill?
Exactly.
You don't do it anymore. Or even had to actually go click something even to do it.
Yeah,
Now
it's just automatically set up.
You set something up, it pays your bills for you, you get maybe a notification about what was paid, and that's it.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. There's no reason why you shouldn't be doing that at a company level too. Like look at, and again, it's that idea of look at your processes. What do you have going on? Daniel, as you mentioned, outside of the human to human stuff, what's happening in your business that you could just as easily automate and then reallocate somebody from wasting a bunch of time messing with numbers or clicking buttons and moving stuff around and put them into a different position where they can actually make an impact and a difference with your customers and your business and what you're trying to actually accomplish.
Yeah, that's it. And we've talked about that, reallocating of those resources. And I'm glad you touched on that, Daniel, because, if you implement some of these RPAs or processes that start automating things in the background, well, the human capital that you have is still very important to the company. It still is the number one resource of any company are their employees, because if they've been there for any amount of time, they have just, tribal knowledge, call it whatever you will, knowledge about the company, and that you can leverage that. But maybe they should be leveraged in a more human touch. And so I like that about where you were going, Daniel, because that rings a chord to what we've been hearing and seeing. And
well, for all you know, your best person is wasting their time crunching numbers, filling out spreadsheets, running reports.
Yeah.
That could be one of your best face-to-face people or your best idea people for expanding and growing and scaling your business that you've just never tapped into because for now you've got him in this low-level job that you have to have somebody to do because you don't want to automate that yet.
Yeah, so true. Yeah.
I mean, do you know what? I mean, one of the best moats for any business is the best support or the best sales, the best relationship we can have with our client. Good luck breaking through that, right?
Definitely.
It's true.
Well, so Daniel, let's talk about another aspect here. This is a topic we're very passionate about here on the show. We talk about frequently because, we spent most of the last 18 months working from home, and we're not here recording podcasts. We're typically working from home still. Remote work has become a big deal. It's become a force that no one ever expected it to be. And I think that whole concept is something that can blend itself into this idea of rapid scaling, because if you're looking to grow your business right now, you're looking to move up and you want the best people for your business, that person very well may not be in the same region, the same city, the same state or even the same country that you're in. So why not, take advantage of that? So, from your perspective, what are your thoughts on businesses kind of future-proofing and helping themselves to grow and to scale by embracing a talent pool that's not necessarily local?
Yeah, there's actually a hidden benefit that people often don't pick up on with it. You're forced to document everything. Because as soon as you start trying to hire people from around the world, you're going to find, like you say, they're in a different state. So you're going to start maybe finding a couple of hours time difference. I mean, maybe we'll find them 4-hour time distance. Maybe you're going to hire someone, here in the UK or over in Russia or wherever it might be. Those time differences, forcing companies to be asynchronous, is the future and is the secret to nailing this. If you can nail asynchronous working, you can outflank your competitors every single turn. They just can't keep up, right? They've got to sleep at some point. And if they're still working, from Philadelphia and they've got their whole team there around a desk, they're going to lose. They can't win. You've got no overheads. Your team are completely distributed. You're able to pick people up quickly. And like you said, pick up some of those talented people in the world. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where we keep always landing on this too, is I do feel like, honestly, the competitive nature in the future of finding new employees might have a lot to do with being able to say, like, hey, I'm looking at you. I know you are great at doing this. You are hundreds of miles away from me, but I'm happy to let you stay right where you are, where you want to be, where you want to live, and where you want to work, but still employ you even though I'm, on the other side of the country. And I think there's going to be, we were actually kind of talking offline before this whole idea of a worker revolution of sorts that, may kind of influence the next level of what's happening in the world of employment and jobs, where maybe there's a little more power on the side of the employee to say, hey, I want to work for somebody that's a little more flexible. And I think we already were talking about that desire for flexibility, but now there's even one more level we can add on top of it.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, here I say to everyone, you're an adult. So you decide this is the output we need to produce. We know what we're expected to do. So let's all be adults. So work from where you want. And I literally mean it, wherever you want. You're going to work from a beach and it makes you happy, good for you. I mean, I'd love to go to, Bermuda or the Caribbean and work from there. Amazing. I mean, I can't, but I'd love to. Stuff to do here. My kids are at school, but still, I say to myself, work from wherever you want, whatever makes you happy, and at the same time, unlimited holidays. Take whatever holiday you need. Be an adult about it. If your output's still there, no one can question that, right? And that's what it's about. I think that the concept of working 9 to 5, I think, is outdated, and I don't think is really correct anymore. Sure, we need to take into account client time zones, but if we have a fully distributed team, that shouldn't really be a problem anymore.
Yeah, great point.
I can see it. And, as you kind of mold, as we're all kind of remolding what that work environment looks like, you have to be sensitive to those types of things. Hey, Daniel, going back to maybe some of, how do you, when you typically walk into a customer walk us through some of those things that you have an eye on, right? I mean, obviously your eye is to try to make them more efficient, and you're trying to build a system that they can scale moving forward. But what are some things that you typically are looking for, your team is looking for when they walk in the door to a new prospect?
All right, cool. Well, typically, let's say John and I have got a meeting because John is scaling rapidly. He's got some problems. We'll walk in, I'll give John a hug and say, tell me where it hurts, John. And then we'll sit down and we'll work it out. Typically the business owners are instantly going to tell you what the problem is. Yeah. It's the thing that they go to bed worrying about. It's the thing they wake up worrying about in the morning. And it's going to be there. Big issues we often come across is communications and transparency in businesses. Where communications break down, people aren't being followed up on things, that's where it gets really difficult. You can end up with a bit of a blame culture where everyone says, hey, wasn't me. Mm-hmm. And that can be a big issue. And we're not looking to as business owners or management, really blame someone. We just want to get it fixed. We want to make sure they don't make the mistake again. It's okay to make mistakes. If we're scaling rapidly, we're going to make mistakes. That comes with it, right? And we expect that. But yeah, typically you're going to find it's client comms. You're going to find it's financial stuff. Cash flow is a really big issue. And you're going to find that there's going to be, for people who are producing physical products, there is a whole issue going on at the moment with looking at anything to do with moving product around. Even if it's from state to state or to another country, is a whole different deal at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. Well, I like where you were going there because, so much of this can go back to communications, and I can remember, back again in a previous life of mine when we were trying to develop managed services and trying to paint that picture of what that's going to look like and what we're going to go to market with, right? What are those as a service things are we going to be bringing to the marketplace? Well, you have to be able to communicate that what you're trying to do, and then map out the communications within your team members in order for that to be efficient. Because if you don't map that out, if you don't have the processes there, it's going to get gummy really fast, as we talked about, and then suddenly it just doesn't work. You have a bunch of frustrated customers and things like that. So that's interesting. Communications and transparency. I heard you there. A lot of software development companies, though, are dealing with cash flow. So what are some advice that you would give on that front? Are you early on trying to bring some efficiencies to cash flow too, and how it's delegated? Do you go into that part of it as well?
Yeah, cash flow is really, really tied to two key areas when it comes to software development. There's estimation of projects and there's utilization of staff. Mm-hmm. If we're misestimating projects, that's where the cash flow issues come in for these companies. Some of the companies are going to ask for 50% payment up front. They're going to ask for monthly retainers. They're going to ask for everything upon delivery. But as soon as you start misestimating things, that's where you get big problems. And a lot of these software developers will have no process for the estimation. Sure, we're all familiar with Scrum. We're familiar with sprints. We're going, we're guessing our points, and everyone's really happy about how they've had their, sprint planning day. But how many of us are going to hold our hands up and say that actually works? And we're not really even looking at any historical data when we're doing that as well, right? So it is about establishing a proper process for your software estimation. It's a complete conversation that we could have, and there's a real dark art to it, but it's an important point to underline. And the other one is, as I've said before, is utilization. Because if you misestimate something, your utilization is going to be off, because you get into a situation where, are you going to charge the client? Are you not going to charge the client for this? What's your arrangement with the client? Things are going to start to get really icky really quick, and that can become a real big problem. And I mean, this is on top of other things when we're just talking about general, financial director or financial analyst type of roles where money needs to be chased, invoices need to be sent on time. these types of things are vital to companies like that for their cash flow.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, hey, I think we could go down this rabbit hole for a very long time, honestly. But,
Yes.
more importantly, if you want to learn more about this, first of all, check out Lollyco. That's LOLLY.co. I will put a link to that in the show notes as well, so you can reach that. And check out Daniel's book, Upgrade, when it comes out as well. I guarantee there's going to be a lot more in-depth discussion about this topic there. Before we move on to the value of the VAR, I want to, as always, thank our sponsors, Elo, Epson, Honeywell, and Zebra. Thank you very much for your support of the show. We couldn't do it without you. Hey, if you have some thoughts about the show, we want to hear from you. If you like the show, if you want to give us a little bit of feedback, give us a 5-star rating review on Apple Podcasts. We'd love to hear from you there. If you watch us on YouTube, hit the like button for this episode, leave us a comment, subscribe to the channel. We want to learn more from you. And of course, as always, if you do want to reach out to us, if you have some talking points that you want to share with us, if you have some questions or other topics you want us to discuss, you can find us on Twitter at TEConnectPod. You can also email us TEConnect@BlueStarInc.com. All right, let's wrap up then with, first of all, the value to the VAR. So, Daniel, this is the part of the show where we typically kind of try to take what we've discussed already and wrap it up with a takeaway for our audience, for our VARs, for our software companies that listen to us.
Yeah.
So, in your mind, for our customers that do think they're ready to scale, they've listened to this, they've heard all of the potential pitfalls, and they're still saying to themselves, yeah, but I think I want to do this. I think I'm ready to do all this stuff. What are one or two things you would suggest that they do right now to get started?
Okay. If you think you're ready to scale and you're ready to put your money where your mouth is, here's the key. Go online, go onto a comparison site for airline tickets, book yourself a ticket to somewhere hot. Stay there for 2 weeks. Tell your team you're doing this. Don't talk to them for 2 weeks. Come back and then tell me if you're ready to scale.
I like it.
Think about it, huh?
I like it. No snap judgments here. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, look, you'll know straight away. Your team will come back. They're either going to be a lot of fires or none. If there's none, you're ready to scale.
Ah, gotcha.
I like that.
I like it. Yeah. Everything's
like
running smoothly. We're ready to step on the gas and start scaling this, market
That's
this
right.
baby. Yeah.
And that's got to feel good from a management perspective, too, because I remember from my days in management, and even now, where I'm more or less an individual contributor for the most part. But you're right. You take that week away and you say to yourself, how much is going to go wrong while I'm gone that I'm going to fix when I come back? And if you come back and you're pleasantly surprised by it and go, oh, okay, everything's cool.
So if you come back and there's a lot of fires, you got a lot of work to do. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. You're not ready. You're not ready at that point. But hey, look, more holidays, right? Who's going to complain?
Exactly.
Your wife's not.
Yeah.
That's got to be the best advice we've ever given, too. We basically just told people, go on vacation. That's the value right now, is go on vacation for a couple weeks. The TEConnect podcast told you so.
Oh, that's
like
pretty
it.
good. Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, let's wrap up then with what's TEConnecting with you. That's our favorite segment. We get to talk about something in the world of technology, science, innovation that has our attention. It's caught our eye, something we're reading about, something we are excited about, dreading. Who knows what it could be.
Right.
Daniel, I'll let you start. What's TEConnecting with you right now?
Okay, what is TEConnecting with me right now is a small company I found called SwitchBot. I think the site is switchbot.io. But these are small, and you can probably see, I want to see if I can get my hand in the right direction. There somewhere. You can see on our light switch there is a small box. Now, this is it's a Bluetooth switch, and it can press and it can pull. So you can put it on light switches.
Okay.
My wife's not so keen because they're everywhere. It's littered. But I quickly realized that it comes with a small box that connects to the Wi-Fi, and it has an API. So you can really do some cool stuff with it. So for me, I'm trying to connect up to my own personal assistant, which is having some interesting results. But for others, you'll be able to connect up to Zapier and other great things like this. So it's for the lazy person. It means you can make your coffee in the morning without having to do anything. You can turn your heater on and off, your fans, anything you want, or the lights on and off as you wish. I think it's great fun. It's something that's so simple. Just clicking or pulling a button back is quite fulfilling.
There you go. Switchbox.io. Is that the
SwitchBot?
SwitchBot.
SwitchBot.
Yeah.
And
SwitchBot.
I will put that link in the show notes for that too. I got to check that out. Yeah.
More automation at your home.
There you go.
Now wait a minute. You said your wife is putting these all around, and it's not you?
No. She's taking them off of things. They
Oh,
just disappear. I put them
gotcha.
on stuff, and then they're suddenly disappearing. She's not so keen on. She's not so keen on the way they look.
Oh, I got you.
Oh, there we go. It's
Yeah.
Right.
the aesthetic.
And my very funny jokes, as she calls them, while she's watching TV.
Nice.
That's pretty good. All
right, Dean, what's TEConnecting with you?
Well, I'm intrigued by this. It's actually a research that has come out by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and it's all around how we spent our time in 2020 versus 2019, right? And so then there's polling some
shows
things
a big
out.
difference. Yeah.
Shows a big difference. So they, basically the question was in a 24-hour period. The survey was what did you do normally over a 24-hour period, and they compared it to what people were doing in 2019 versus 2022.
Right.
Now, or 2020. I'm sorry. Now, the one that came to the top, what people are doing or were doing in 2020 versus 2019, the thing they were doing more than anything else. You will never guess it in a million years, but I'll give you the chance to guess it. So 2019 versus 2020, what were we doing in 2020? Way more than in a 24-hour period than we were doing in 2019.
I'm sure it's like watching streaming or something like that, or watching content or something.
Okay. Now, Daniel, you want to venture a guess? Well, no, this was in
or
the
sleeping,
States.
one of the two.
No, the answer is no. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll give you the answer. It's listening to the radio. What? Listening to the radio leads the way with a median of more than doubling, and the 75th percentile almost quadrupling the amount of time that they spent listening to the radio. I would never have guessed that. That was the number one thing that people are doing more in 2020 in a 24-hour period than they did in 2019.
When I actually did listen to radio,
yes,
because I mean, streaming music exists,
right?
I certainly didn't listen anywhere but the car.
Hey, I'm just giving you the survey.
Who even has a radio in their house
so
anymore?
Other thing, I'm with you. Other things on here did seem to make sense, like interior arranging and decorating and repairs.
Okay,
that's way up there. Computer use for leisure, not games. Okay, got it. Financial management, that's up there. Sure, okay, yeah. How are my stocks doing? Blah blah blah. That kind of stuff. All that lawn and gardening. Other things that you would think of, but listening to the radio was number one. Now, what are we?
Did they interview anybody under the age of 65 for this? I mean,
well, it is the Bureau of Labor Statistics here in the United States, so we do have to question some of those, right? I mean, yeah, exactly. Who are they? The only people that answer polls in America are going to be 60 years and older. So yeah, they're listening to more radio. Oh, I turned on the radio and. But what are we doing less of? Well, we're not waiting for things, right? We're not dropping kids off. We weren't doing as much. A little less on the healthcare, which makes sense, right? We weren't doing healthcare related self-care or going to doctors and stuff like that. Travel for religious and spiritual things dropped off. So, you saw but it's really interesting. They've got it a whole kind of graphed out and it's very visual that you can see what we're doing more of and what we did less of. But that first one's like listening to radio. It's like off the charts, and it's like, no, something's got to be messed up.
I hope that like listening to radio, like I hope that was like a euphemism for like podcasts or just listening to streaming music
audio
or something
only.
Yeah, just loaded like into one.
Okay, maybe I'll give you that. Maybe because
that's the only way that would make sense.
That is the only way it would make sense because podcasts have like exploded, right?
Like and it has been an upward trend as it is.
Yeah. We
started ours last year.
Yeah,
so
Daniel, when's the last time you listened to the radio? Probably never.
Yeah,
I can just tell by his look. Yeah,
I don't think we own a radio.
Right.
Exactly.
So it's got to be something.
Yeah, I don't know how it works in the car. I've never even tried to operate the radio.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay. So it's clearly something's wrong with the statistic here. I'm going to go with your podcast one. That it's really anything audio related.
Because if you're throwing in stuff like audio books and everything too, I don't know. I don't buy that one. All
right. Well, anyway, what's TEConnecting with you?
So we have talked a few times about some of our wish list stuff of like, can't wait till this happens. And we always talk like about automated
flying
vehicles.
cars.
Right. And flying cars, too. Sure. That's more of yours than mine because I'm realistic here. So, but one of these things we keep talking about, which I hate to kind of burst the bubble on, is delivery drones.
Okay.
So there's an article I came across.
You're bursting the bubble today?
Yes. I'm so sorry. There's an article I came across on Tech Radar, which was basically the title was Why Delivery Drones Are Struggling to Take Off Even with DHL and Amazon on Board.
All right.
And basically it was diving into the idea that, hey, this probably isn't going to be the drone showing up at your door, dropping off your Amazon packages like everyone expects to happen anytime soon. And there was a few reasons they got into here. So DHL has basically dropped their operation entirely. They were doing something called Parcel Copter.
Yeah.
They've essentially stepped away from it. They're not going to make their own drones anymore.
Okay.
At best, they're going to partner up with some others if they have some ideas.
Got it.
Amazon dialed back their UK Prime Air operations for drones dramatically. They still won't say that they're out of it yet, but internal people are saying like, no, this whole thing's collapsing into itself.
Got it.
And basically what it comes down to is a lot of it is there's some factors like legislation, security, safety, but the biggest one is practicality.
Okay.
That they can't justify the practicality of it when, especially as we've seen over the last year, as delivery is ramped up. Last mile delivery is getting bigger and better and better with people just getting stuff driven to your house and dropped off.
Okay.
It's not a big issue, enough of an issue that people are just demanding, I have to have it delivered by a drone.
Oh, I see.
When it's still so convenient and easy for someone to drive to your home and drop something off instead.
I gotcha.
So instead, what it sounds like is going to happen here is a lot of this work that's being done in this is being pivoted to other places. Some examples, applications were like inspecting buildings, public safety, topography and map making, agricultural spraying.
You're talking about for drones.
Right,
now, yeah?
delivering medical supplies. Like
Yes, to a remote areas.
DHL, like they shifted some of their stuff over to working with a company that's delivering medical supplies to West Africa, for instance.
Gotcha.
So there's basically saying like, look, it's probably unlikely they were all ever going to start getting just packages dropped off at our door by drones.
Well, I went out and built a little drop pad or a little landing pad for the drone out in my backyard.
You got a little ahead of yourself there. So
that's not going to happen?
No. And the bottom line is, I mean, like, do you ever really feel like you have a lot of complaints about packages being dropped off? I mean, every once in a while, something might go to the wrong
Yeah, but I thought there was the
house.
whole environmental angle too. Like we got to get trucks off the road.
There
so
probably
if
is,
we got
but-
battery powered drones flying around,
But that's just
we're going
it.
to save the earth.
If we're moving to, more eco-friendly vehicles,
Yeah.
and I could see autonomous vehicles start delivering packages.
So like the Domino's,
Yeah.
the little thing that comes down
Exactly.
the road and the door opens, you go out and get it.
I could see more of that starting to happen, but
Okay.
it just
But
sounds
drones,
like they're kind of pulling the plug a little bit on the
Well,
drone
yeah,
thing.
and there are a lot of practical reasons why drones just. I've got so many trees around my house that I couldn't get a drone in there.
It feels like it's one of those things where the time and effort and the millions of dollars you have to spend to make this happen do not really justify the marginal ROI on top of what we're already doing.
Gotcha. Daniel, were you counting on drones delivering packages to your house, and now he's just burst your bubble?
Yeah, listen, I am quite upset about this. I think you're right, though. I think there's going to be some great applications for it. There's a very outlandish celebrity in the UK called Jeremy Clarkson. He was famous for doing a lot of car shows. And he has a new show called
Top Gear. We love
Clarkson's.
him.
Yeah, right. And this guy has a new thing in the UK called Clark. It's on Amazon, actually. There we go. Called Clarkson's Farm. And in it, he decides that instead of rounding up his sheep with a sheepdog, he should use a drone instead.
Yeah.
There we go. So there is a use related to Amazon for rounding up your sheep if you need to. If any one of us has decided, actually, we're getting out of the software game, sheep's for us.
I like it.
So
I like
drones
it.
aren't going away. We're just going to repurpose them in some way. There
Just-
it is.
It's not gonna. Sorry, you're just gonna have to get your package the old-fashioned
All
way.
right, I'll turn my drone pad into a fire pit.
There you go. Yeah, you can find something. You're very industrious, clearly. So. All right.
go.
Daniel Cooper from Lolico, thank you so much for joining us again. Check out his book, Upgrade, when it comes out. Like I said, I'll drop some links in the show notes for you to keep in tabs on things. We appreciate you being on the show today.
Thank you so much. It's been my pleasure.
All right, it is unfortunately time for us to unplug. So until next time, find another use for your drones that's safe and legal, and stay connected, everybody. Cannabis dispensary owners require reliable, easy-to-use hardware designed to withstand the rigors of continuous use. While consumer products often fail to deliver, Elo's commercial-grade solutions provide an advantage, offering manageability, long life cycle, durability, ease of support, warranty, and flexibility. From all-in-one POS systems, flexible monitors, and easy-to-connect peripherals, to eye-catching displays, self-service kiosks, and mobile computers for inventory management, Elo offers a variety of modern, engaging solutions for your dispensary customers. To learn more, check out the link in the show notes or contact the BlueStar Elo team. Finding new avenues to generate sales revenue in the new normal can be daunting. With organizations facing a number of challenges, including reduced staffing and IT budget cuts, the ability to service and maintain their existing Zebra hardware has never been more critical. For channel partners, selling service contracts that extend the life of purchased Zebra hardware is a great value-added sales tool that will not only benefit your customer, but also your bottom line. To learn more, check out the ebook called Zebra Service Contracts, Why You Should Sell Them and How BlueStar Can Help. It's available at TEConnectportal.com by searching contracts, or you can find the link in the show notes.